So I'm Michael Strong with Expanse, a program for children who are hate school and want to do something different. And so we work with parents to develop the genius in your child. Children 8 and up, and I'll let Matt Barnes take it away.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Matt Barnes. I am the co-founder of an organization called The Education Game, and our work focuses exclusively on parents to help parents learn how to transition out of an educational system that's not working for them, but also to support them along that journey. And it's great to see you guys this evening, and looking forward to the conversation. Kath?
Yes, hi, I'm Catherine Fraise. I'm the founder of Workspace Education, and Workspace is really like a 32,000 square foot makerspace where children are free to create their own personalized pathways and then implement them, you know, in community, which I'm a big fan of community. Mm-hmm. I also founded 100 Roads, which is a research and development company for education, for co-learning in particular. And it's in that work that I came across Katy here and Eric, and I heard about their wonderful story and the amazing things that Eric is doing, and also that Katy's doing, developing these workflows for children. I was so impressed with their story, and I think they're just a really great example of, you know, when you remove the obstacles that school puts in front of children, they can really they can reach really great heights. And you've got a mother's perspective, how she has supported her son as he's been on this journey, and reinvented herself, also doing amazing things in education and making great alternatives for children. So Katy's going to tell you a little bit more about herself and where she's come from, and then we'll get to our star this evening, Eric, who's going to tell us, you know, why he left school and what he's done since he's left school, and the impact that he hopes to make in the world.
Terrific.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Oh, thank you, Michael and Matthew, for inviting us today here. We are very excited. I especially wish that I would have your support when Eric was 10 years ago, 7 years of age. And he came home one afternoon, opened the door and said, "I'm quitting school." And I was like, no, what? And I was like mortified, because I really had the blessing to, well, I'm not a too young fellow here, but on my time, I had the blessing to have a very good school and an extraordinary teacher. So for me, going to school, having this whole environment, it was my life. Like, I was crying on holidays and celebrating when you had to go to school. So you can imagine that my relationship to education was really, really good. Yeah. And then my son, who loved to learn with every single day since he was like 2 or 3 years of age, he was learning by himself, asking questions. We were learning every single day, because I simply never stop learning, as I love learning. I wanted to be a teacher, but my parents said no, because they are badly paid and you have to put up with all the parents, requests. And they say, oh, you have to do something else. Well, I managed to run into the holistic and beauty business and wellness business, where then I ended up coaching more than working. But then I made all the steps for small business to international coach and wellness manager. I enjoyed it because I could teach. Actually, that was, everybody always told me, I love to come to your treatment, but I love the education, what I received. So, you know, balanced it like out. And then Eric came into our life. And he was in Montessori school from the age of 4. But unfortunately in Ireland, still the alternative education, it's a very, very, very small niche. And that school where he went, it was from some very unfortunate reason closed. So we did not have anything else. He had to go to school, but Eric went to school with a very open mind and open heart, went to the principal directly to enroll him, because it was like almost the end of a school year and we had to change. And then the principal said, okay, 1 week time you can come to join. So we went home. We went back 1 week after, and the principal said, Eric, I have bad news. The teacher said that you can join just next week, because she has to make preparations to get you in her classroom. And then Eric was like this, because he was every morning waking up, let's go, let's go, let's go. And we left the office saying, thank you, of course, we'll come back next week. And then the principal ran after us in the parking lot and said, I spoke to the teacher and I told him I never saw a child who was so upset that he cannot attend school. So please come back, you can attend. Now, probably Eric didn't score that day a good point at the teacher because that relationship just started escalating. And Eric was complaining and unhappy that what is not happening in school is actually learning, which he loves. He was bullied because he wanted more homework. He wanted more pastime. And the kids were like, what's wrong with you, dude? Go home, do something. And then the teacher, I could see on her face every morning when she showed that we are showing up in the car and she was like, oh my God, here we go again. And it escalated to the point when one day I was called to the principal office because Eric said to the teacher very politely not to shout at them. And the teacher said, I have to shout because, you know, everybody's talking, nobody's paying attention. And then Eric added, well, if you would say something interesting, they might listen. And then, and then so we ended up in the principal office where the principal told me.
Because he was honest.
Yes, but he's very honest. He got the certificate when he was 4 years old for telling somebody that you will lose your business if you don't do something with these kids. Because so anyway, he was always he has a certificate about this from Hungary. Anyway, and short story long is that, of course, we had to think about something else because the teacher was very upset. The principal told us in private, would love to support you, but I cannot face my teachers, you know, and this is just not the right time. So anyway, Eric came home within a week before and he said this historic, I want to quit school. And I said, why? And he said, because I'm losing my life. And that hit me, you know, when you're worried already. And I said, okay, but like what we were going to do. And he said, oh, I Googled it already. I have a plan. Let's go for home education. And I was like, what is that? And how is that possible? And actually in Ireland is very, very easy. In Ireland, you simply write that letter, but here in Nevada is the same, that you're quitting school, let them know, and goodbye. In Ireland, it's even much more simple because the state says that every parent has the right to educate their kids in their home, and they can't do really nothing, like anything. And then when I ring this office to let them know, I saw that I'm the only one, and we were case 5,500 something. So I was, oh my God, there's so many people, and it's such a small country. It must be. So anyway, that's how it started. And then all my Irish friends came to me, looked deeply into my eye and said, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy or something? This is a 7-year-old child. He cannot take a decision that he quit school.
Oh my goodness.
How comes that you allow this? And this continued like for next years. And it was like, the school is for free. God's sake, just shuffle him here. And, you know, Irish people tell their kids, okay, bad luck. This is life, you know, put up with it, get used to it. And I was just, no, I can't do this to my child. I can't watch his struggle that he's not happy because he cannot learn. I cannot send him every day to fight with, you know, somebody with no reason to fight because it's no reason. So that's how it started.
Wow.
It was nobody who to support me then. So it was like a 3-4 years when I was waking up in the middle of the night, like having panic attacks. Even though Eric showed me after 3 months when I tried to make, you know, make it like in the school, we sit down every day, blah, 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 blah. And then we had, you know, family problems. And I always tell everybody, prepare yourself, you know, it will be hard times. Our neighbors were like, what happened to this nice family? Why are you shouting? And then I just said to Eric, okay, I give up. You will have to find a school. But Eric said, give me a week. And in a week, I will show you how this has to be done. So, well, we have nothing to lose now.
Wait, how old was he when he said that?
7.5 by then.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Very impressive. Go, Eric.
And then he showed us, like he worked all week. We didn't even look at him. We couldn't because he was preparing day and night. And that week he was interested about how the weather is and how a weather report has to be made. So he set up in the living room a whole studio, a TV studio, all the charts made by hand, all the reports, studied the water cycle, Ireland's weather, a temperature, what everything means. And by Friday evening, he presented us a 30 minutes or 40 minutes presentation in which I was sitting there and I said, well, this is like 4 years of science from school.
Exactly. Did you record that? Did you record that?
I know.
You did?
No.
Oh.
Like we didn't even expect it what will happen, you know, not because we didn't trust him, but it wasn't, it was something like we said, okay, we were already used to Eric, that he's telling things and he's able to articulate things and to make a presentation. We never thought about, and 10 years ago, I don't think we had this Nokia small phones. I don't think they would be able to
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Unless if you had a camcorder, it was very rare that you would probably get either usable video or video at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that,
good point.
But anyway, and then we decided, okay, let's continue. And the agreement was that if he sustained this rhythm, then he will have to, you know, he is able. Well, in myself and my husband, we already knew that he will be able. We didn't know that it will make us to move continents and countries, but we never regret this. And actually, our life is like, you know, so full of events because Eric led us on this way.
Wow.
I wouldn't say it was all a joyride. Of course, it's not, but already worth it. So the best is just to come.
Fantastic.
What a great story.
I know, it's like looking back, sometimes I say, well, yeah, we did well. Yes, of course, there is always like, I don't have them anymore, but the first 3-4 years, especially when your surroundings are people who are still in the school, you know, even though they struggle like crazy, they come to cry on your shoulder and then they bring back their kids.
Yes.
And I'm like, if your child is not happy, if your child is not learning, why do you, what are you afraid of? What can you lose? Because there's nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know, it's just gaining. And of course, then Eric showed us, and then everybody came after 2-3 years, said, oh, how comes he's so smart? How comes he knows so much? Can you teach my child? Like we had once a little girl dropped in our door and they said, we are traveling for 2 weeks. Here's our daughter, do something with her. I was like, we are not a child mechanic station. Like, wait. But they closed the door and left. And so we had for two weeks a 14 years old. And that's another story, but it was a great ending. So yes, that's how I started getting involved, because then we started organizing workshops, from workshops, after school programs. And then when Eric was 12, he pitched himself out in the States through Google. So then we left. Unfortunately, we're not prepared to leave something behind in Ireland, but then we came here and with full steam, we start creating what we are working today. Wow.
Great story. And good for you for respecting your child's well-being. And I hate to put it that way to other people, but for me, I'm even more in shock that these parents watch their children suffering day after day, and they keep pushing them out the door into suffering. So I'm all for parents respecting their children's well-being. It's
you know, it's so, I always tell parents, you know, I know that we were taught that the parent has right, it's older, but at this stage in time, we don't have more knowledge than them. We just have experience. But now after all this time, the last year, not even that experience matters anymore. So what can you lose? What can you lose when you have nothing to lose, you know? And they say that the most dangerous people are who don't have anything to lose, because then they just go like crazy, but they always create amazing things. So it's like, it's very hard, especially the social emotional environment, the other pressure parents, because I know when they come to me, they don't want to hurt me. They want it actually to somehow get for themselves justification. Because they just, and I'm always like, what is that you can lose? And they say, well, my child will have no paperwork, he will have no certificates. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't really matter anymore, but if you want, I can print you all some certificates. We have a printer. So yeah.
Well, I work with parents a lot, and I understand the fear, right? It takes, and I think you said something early in the conversation about how you love to learn, and you know, a learner is comfortable taking risks because there's a confidence that they're going to be able to figure it out. And I think that's probably some of what Eric experienced early on, this confidence that, oh, I can figure it out. So yeah, sorry,
just 1 second, just because one of the things that I would like to mention about learning and like being a learner is that oftentimes with schools and also higher education groups, they often try to project the image that once you've completed a course or once you've completed the program, you don't need to learn anymore. You've gotten the certification, you're our class, congratulations, you don't need to learn anything anymore. You have everything you need. Just come back once a year or every 3 years to just pay that extra fee so that we can just recertify you so that you know that you're good. Right. And that's about it. And that's just another projection that happens a lot. And that's definitely one of the things that we have a hard time teaching to a lot of people and showing to a lot of people that it's not just about completing a 4-year degree or a 10-year degree or how many years you want to invest in something. It's actually about being able to take that, finding a reason and a passion, and to continue learning on that. If you keep sharpening your craft, you can still get better. And a lot of people, they sort of become dull over time because they just don't want to put in that extra effort, whether it's because they've been just told like, hey, you don't need to learn anymore. You've gotten that degree, you've gotten that diploma, like, congratulations. Yes. And that's about it. And that's definitely a very dangerous projection that I see a lot of people project, especially parents, that they just tell their kids like, oh, don't worry, you just have another 4 years and then you will never have to learn again. And a lot of people like are motivated about this. And to me, that's very scary because we learn every single day, whether we want to or not. And if we learn with purpose, we can actually learn more and even faster. Definitely. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in there because that's one thing that oftentimes I feel like it gets overlooked. And a lot of people, they don't want to admit that the institutions try to project that if you buy this certification or if you go through this program, that's all you need to know for life. You're done.
Great point.
Sorry, I would add that I see a lot of them as basically fraudulent, that, I think the Better Business Bureau should be ripping both K-12 and universities to the ground all over the place. But sorry, Matt, you were in the middle of a question.
No, I'm really eager to hear more from Eric's perspective, but for the parents that might be listening, just the two things: one, that mom was curious; two, that she didn't discourage his questioning early on, which again, I'm recovering from some of this stuff, Katie. So I'm as, my kids are in their teens and I'm now learning and, trying to do better about some of the stuff. But yeah, I was very much like, don't ask me why. And don't ask me how that works. I don't know. But you were a type of parent, sounds like, that you encouraged and fed that kind of curiosity, which is fantastic. It's interesting that, we only spent a moment talking about the bullying and how school is an unsafe place for curious kids. How sad of a commentary is that? It's an unsafe place for kids. And then lastly, he was being honest to a teacher. And, other kids will ask the question, why do I need to know this, teacher? That's an honest question. And that's a question that should be respected, but we tend not to. So anyway, I just wanted to summarize some of what I heard that really shaped Eric's upbringing. And so that's it. Yeah.
It's quickly before we let in Eric go, when you said, it's terrible that curious kids are bullied and it's a place anti-curiosity. I remember my kids, after being in a Montessori school, they spent about 3 weeks in a regular public school and they described it as the Learning Prevention Center. We don't want to go to the Learning Prevention Center.
Completely the best. If you don't mind, I will use this. Yeah, I will use this because that's so true.
Go, Eric. We're eager to hear from the star.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's really good to see more people out there who are who sort of understand the message and are willing to give me a shot and explain what's been going on with our program and how things have been, how we're doing things. So I would say, again, starting from the beginning, again, I was lucky enough to have parents who were, again, curious. My mother, especially, she always wanted to learn. And that was definitely something that growing up was helping me. Like when I was a baby, she used to read me, instead of Little Red Riding Hood, she would read me self-development books, audio tapes from motivational public speakers, storytelling voice, which is really good. And that definitely sort of shaped my, my experience growing up with that. And from there, I was lucky enough to go to a really good Montessori school. To this day, I still have vivid memories with the teachers. So it really did work out for me really well until some issues happened with school politics. As you know, that is another part that a lot of schools do suffer with, is politics. and things did sort of have issues, and we did have to leave the school, and a lot of parents had to leave the school. And at the time in Ireland, that was the only Montessori school available. There were no other options, at least not around us. And with this, we didn't really have an option. In Ireland, there's not really, at that time especially, there wasn't really heard other alternatives than public school. It was either public school, private school, or Montessori, and there were maybe 2 or 3. There wasn't really an option of that. And like even homeschooling, it was sort of put out as this thing that it's there, but you shouldn't really take it because it's going to be your responsibility. And a lot of people, they weren't informed on these options. So it was either public or private. That was like 2 options. I cannot describe the amount of people that I've met who have told me that what you are doing is illegal. Like you cannot leave school. That's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. And like I remember getting a gentleman who used to mail me like notes of like stories of like kids who didn't report that they were taken out of school, so the school thought they were still in the school, and many other issues like that. And I would always have to explain, like, as long as you call this magical phone number and tell these magical people that you no longer want to be part of the institution, they will write you a magical letter and send it to you and put in their record, and you will have no problems. And that was definitely like the first stage that happened. And when we first started out, neither of us really knew how to get started. We sort of tried to make our own school at home, which with one kid is hard enough, especially like right now that I've definitely been working a lot with our students. And it is harder to teach one child alone than it is to teach 10, when it's a little bit more fun when you work in a group because you can sort of bounce ideas off each other, and it just makes it a lot more fun to learn. It makes it a little bit more social. And so with that, it was really hard because we were trying to replicate a system that just wasn't really working well for us. And then it got to the point, as Katie said, where we didn't really see much option in trying to find a school that would be a little bit more supportive or with a more open-minded staff. And one of the things that I got really obsessed with were tutorials and just watching behind the scenes of things. And one of the great things is that, at least at that time in Ireland, if you would watch a news program, usually in the last 15 minutes of a program, they would have this camera that would sort of pan out and it would show the entire stage where they were working. So you would see the people who are like on the desks who are reporting the news or the weather. They would be usually packing up or getting their new work ready. You would have camera operators taking down gimbals, setting up cameras, lights, anything like this, which was really interesting for me to watch. And I started Googling about these jobs. And at that time, I got really obsessed with weathermen. I have no idea why, but I just fell in love with them. I love the way that they talked, especially with the old Irish accents. You would see them reporting about weather. It was just insane for me. So I was like, I need to know, how do they do this job and how could they predict this? And I just started binging YouTube videos for a week, just videos from past weather people, tutorials, how weather, water cycles. And of course, they would often say some type of technical term, which I didn't know. And I was always telling my parents, if you don't know something, then you just Google it. So I would literally just say, okay, there's this word, let me Google it. Okay, this means this, got it. And by the end, I learned how to make my own little mini studio with like I made a cardboard cutout of the TV, and I designed, please don't judge me, in Paint. I designed my boards in Microsoft Paint, and I managed to print them out, and I stuck them in a giant cardboard sheet that we had left over. And I presented my news program with that. And then that was where a lot of things started clicking for me, because I didn't just learn water cycles. I learned how to read. I learned how to take notes. I learned how to form a presentation about it. I learned how to present the idea to people who were either familiar but forgot, or just showcase what I learned. And that was a really valuable skill for me, especially to this day, because I sort of always learned like that. I would gather up information. I would make a presentation about it. And today it made it a really good skill for me, because I can just really talk about programs and I can talk about what we do. And it definitely helped bestow confidence on me, because when I would learn, I would be able to know that as long as I can teach somebody else or talk about this idea confidently, then I know what I know.
Yes.
And from there, it sort of skyrocketed. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like technology back then. I always looked at them as some weird box that would just make things. I wouldn't really want to do any type of coding or any type of career like that. And one time
sorry,
I did.
He didn't want,
yes.
He said to me, I will not be a man who's sitting all day in front of a computer in a hoodie. That was for Eric developer.
I would wear suits.
And I was like, okay.
I would wear suits all the time. There were, I would look like basically a young business professional who just walked out of an office. That's what I looked like on a day-to-day basis. And this was a mentality that stayed with me for quite a while. And slowly over time, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with like hackathons or events. Basically,
Yes.
it's these really sick events where you have 48 to 57 hours, I believe, 50 hours, it's 48 or something hours. 72, sorry, thank you. So 72, usually was 72 hours of just, you come in, you pitch an idea, and you make this idea into a reality. And in the meantime, while I was on this path, we were sort of trying to do education and to spotlight this, especially in Ireland. It was definitely a hard part with sort of telling people that this is a possibility. And we wanted to start, when I started really branching out what I was like learning, I would sort of try to figure out how I learned what I learned, which was kind of an odd thing because for me, it became such an easy process to learn something that I would just sort of forget how I learned it. I would just know it. And I just started observing all this information. And when I did that, we decided that it's something that we should share because a lot of people started coming to us and they started asking these questions like, how did I learn this? You're so smart, you're a genius. And I'm like, I'm not a genius. I just learned how to learn. It's not rocket science. It's not something that is something that's impossible to learn. Anybody can learn it. The question is, have you learned it or not? And we sort of tried to start showing people that there is a possibility of doing this. So we started making workshops, we started doing events, and we wanted to make like a physical school. And I looked at the cost of making it and the whole process, and I was like, okay, you know what? How about no? Like that costs way too much money. It has way too many programs. It has way too many different things. So I started trying to speak about this idea, trying to go out to events. I would sort of try to show and inspire people, if that makes sense, to take action and to start demanding some type of change.
Just to check in, how old were you at this point?
At this point, I was around 8 to 9. This was sort of like that phase.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I was expecting 18.
Yeah.
No. I'm actually still 17 right now. So I'm 17 years old right now. So yeah.
And the best thing was when he was talking, he was saying to the people, you know, when I was young, and people were like just cracking up.
When
like,
I was a child.
Back when I was only 7.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and,
like, you know.
And that was like really awesome because we had two types of responses. We either had people who freaked out and ran away, or people who said, you just can't do this, and walk away. And we didn't really mind. We kept doing it, and we had some success. We had some really neat success. We had a couple of programs, a couple of workshops where we had parents ask us if we could do this again, or if we would have a face show. We weren't really prepared for that at the time. We were like, oh my God, somebody actually like agrees with us and likes our program. We need to like start working on this. I ended up writing 2 books. I had to self-publish them. For some reason, whenever I called a publisher and I would say like, hey, I wrote a book about life, they would say, okay. And then they would ask me how old I was. And I would say 9. They either hung up or they would just not respond to my emails anymore. And it became to that point as well where I had to learn how to self-publish a book, and I did, and they're still available. But after this process, we sort of got into a bit of a loop where we'd have people say it's interesting, they would want something else, and we would try to plan something else out, but we didn't really know what to do. And this was sort of at the time where technology was making a rise, because there was like a sort of a public rise when computers got introduced, and they sort of evolved to the point where they were affordable, and you started seeing people have a Lenovo laptop or Asus or a little bit of a notebook that was super underpowered, but we still used it. And that was like sort of like the rise of people starting to use technology, like really using it and just making it more accessible to create things with it. You didn't really need to know anymore how to code to make a website. You didn't really need to know all these technical parts. And that was sort of also the rise of hackathons. And at the time, when we first heard about hackathons, it was through a YouTube video, and we got super excited. So me and Katy, we ended up Googling to see if there's a hackathon in Ireland. Surprise, there was, but it was on the other side of the country. And now Ireland is not big. So I think it's 4 hours to get to the other side of the country by car. 2.5. Oh, wow. So yeah, it's just 2 hours, 2.5 hours just to get to the other side of the country. So we packed up our car. We drove all the way down to the other side of the country. We arrive in Cork. It's late, it's rainy, it's foggy. We break through the event doors after like crawling around this college campus. We arrive and it's all just college freshmen, seniors, and juniors, and just 3 people from this company that were organizing this hackathon. I was like 9.5 at that time, wearing a suit, tie, and a fedora, and my mom. And
nobody else brought their moms.
We didn't fit into the demographic of the ages. We didn't fit into the style, but the organizers were nice enough to let us compete. We didn't win, but we had probably the most fun. We learned a lot. We talked to people. We got to practice our idea in front of a group of people. We learned probably some of the most valuable things that to this day I still harness. And I sort of got addicted to hackathons. I would go to any hackathon, I'd message the organizer and be like, hi, I am 9.5 years old. I have this idea. Could I come and present it? And that's literally what I would do. And I went along on this adventure until one day we were pitching an idea, and we managed, this was the first time we probably had a larger team to work with, and we had 2 really talented looking developers. It ended up happening that the developers couldn't really complete the project since they were doing other things than what they told us. And they mostly came there to spend the money of their corporation and drink and eat. And it wasn't any way I had to pitch without an actual product. And we actually got an honorable mention. And that was the day when I went home and I was like, I can't keep putting this off. I need to start learning technology. And I need to be able to at least understand what technology is and understand what people are doing, how long it takes, and what's reasonable time. So I began, I think that night I stayed up until like midnight, just watching, binging tutorials. The next morning I was like, okay, this is something I kind of like. I started learning HTML, CSS, and all these different languages. And in the meantime, I went to another event. And this time I didn't pitch, I went to join another team because I got quite good at learning how to take a long discussion and change it into a 5-minute pitch that was understandable, that was clean, and that got us to win. And that was the first time we won 2nd place. It was an airport robot that was supposed to help clean runways. And we won 2nd place. It was me, 2 Russian engineers, and we had a blast. They taught me technology. They taught me how to construct up different type of demographics, what type of programming languages to use for what project, how long it takes to do things, and I taught them how to pitch. And with this project, I sort of started to grow. And that was actually at the point where I sort of realized that a lot of people, they don't have a problem with the program, but they have a problem with my age. And that was where I sort of had to admit that I can't be in the limelight. I have to be hidden, and my age has to be a mystery for the world to guess. And as that did, I sort of hit a growth spurt. My voice deepened a little bit so I could do phone calls and people would assume that I'm an adult. And that was really neat. And from that point, I got addicted to graphic design, anything to do with technology. And my goal was at that, and it still is today, was to be able to take an educational curriculum that works, that can be easily customized, that can work at any condition, at any time and anywhere, no matter the age. And that's where we started working on creating a platform. And there is a company, they're called SVOD, Silicon Valley Open Doors. It is an amazing community. If you have a project or something, I highly recommend checking it out. And we went to an event that was being hosted at the Google campus in Ireland. And I ended up going to the organizer, and I just want to thank her for organizing the event. And after talking to her and talking about what we were doing at the time and the platform that we were trying to build, she looked at me and said, well, listen, our last finalist dropped, he didn't come today. So do you want to take his spot on the stage and just pitch your idea? And these 2,000 people and these 30 people on the investment board. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? Give me like 3 minutes.
Eric,
Yes.
you gotta give me a note of how old you are at this point, because
at this point I was like
30.
I would say I'm like 11, 11-ish.
11 and a half-ish. Yeah.
11-ish, yeah. And so I go up there I prepared a pitch and I made the presentation. And that was the first time I didn't get people come up to me and say, you can't do this. And the organizer came down to me after I came off the stage. We took some pictures, and the organizer said, hey, would it be cool if you could come to our other competition that's going to be happening in the States, in Silicon Valley? That's like going to be our final project, like say finalist and like you can win awards and stuff. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, sure, why not? Now, at that time, we did get a lot of promises of people. And it was like, oh yeah, come to this project, come to this event. It's like, totally, we'll send you an invitation. Never heard from them again. So I was sort of assuming that that's going to be the same in this case. We arrived there and we arrived home. We go to sleep the next day. We get an email from the company. Invitation, request a visa. We were astonished. I was like, crazy. And we went and
yes. I already have this documented. If you give me the option to share, I will show you a picture from the YouTubes. But this is already in Silicon Valley pitching, Eric.
If you get to share your screen.
Yes, but I need
do you need permission?
Yeah, I need permission.
Yeah, I think I just was able to share it. Let's see.
Let me see. No, yes, it's working.
Okay, great.
I would just play the first seconds because it was great how it started.
Okay, you're not showing the audio? Oh, sorry.
And Eric, do you have a speaker? Yes. It's your time.
Hi, my name is Eric Lassard, and I'm 12 years old. And I'm the CEO and founder of Kids Edit Pro. And Kids Edit Pro brought here today 1,000 plus. Okay, so when I was 7 years old, I started doing business. And I started making money with my businesses. And I lost my first 2,000 euro in one of my businesses. So I was sitting there broke. A few months later, my girlfriend leaves me. Now, it's not because of the money, it's because her parents lost their house and had to move away.
Okay.
What?
That's wonderful. Go, Eric.
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
All right, because you guys are like schooling all of us, but I gotta ask some questions. So you were 12 at that point, Eric. How many presentations do you think you've given by that point?
At that point, it's kind of hard to say because it was sort of, we were on a roll. We were doing interviews with news stations. We were going to events.
So
I would say
maybe
I could say maybe 100.
Yeah.
At most.
Yeah.
It was definitely a hard time because it was getting difficult because we were definitely fighting the stigma of being a child and just not knowing anything.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at here is you developed a skill really early, it's a superpower. Like your ability to call that audience to laughter multiple times as you're weaving a story, that is a superpower, and you don't learn that overnight, right? You've been practicing that from 8 years old, it sounds like, or 7.
Poise, just incredible poise. Yeah.
Since then we are organizing these events. We made 5 events here in Las Vegas. The last year, of course, it was canceled, where we actually brought the kids through the same process like Eric, and parents were like amazed when Sunday, the very shy kid on Friday, on Sunday they were rocking the stage because they come out and they pitch. And this is also very important. Like, this generation has to learn to talk and present.
Yes.
Because no matter how much you know, if you cannot, present it, if you cannot make a video, if you cannot make a presentation, if you just cannot, that is useless. This is the times when this is much more a skill. Now, Eric was, I will never forget one of the hackathons we worked. Oh my God, this is the best presentation. This is the best. And then a lady came in. I will never forget because I almost threw her out. After 3 days of work, you have 2 hours to go to present. She's sitting down and she said, okay, I want to hear your presentation. So we go ahead and put our life and, everything on the last 5 minutes. And then she looks at us and she said, do you want a pat on your shoulder or do you want somebody to invest in you? And we were like, why? Because she said, if you want a pat on your shoulder, this presentation is excellent. I already give you one. But if you want investment, this is nothing. And we were like, what?
Oh, my
Fantastic.
gosh.
And
Can I-
that's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, please, Eric.
Yeah, and that
go ahead.
was moments which then always push us. Like, you know, Eric, when he went to hackathon with the Russians, they were developers. They could build from nothing everything, but they couldn't present it. And I went so many presentations, even startups or adults, that adults have wonderful things and they were struggling telling you what they want. And I was like, oh my God. And then, oh no, Eric went and said, do you mind telling you? And people were sometimes, no, I know how to do it. Okay, good for you, go for it, you know.
and this was definitely, so just before we continue, going back to the Russians at the hackathon, they were probably the first time when I got exposed to technology where the guy came in, and I was used to developers saying, okay, well, we'll make a prototype here today. It won't be functional, but it's going to be okay. And we'll get it ready in 3 to 4 months. And then if they give us funding, we'll be able to do this. No, these guys came in first aid, no idea. Guy sits around, he says, you know, it'd be cool if we can make this thing that could go around and spot objects. Another guy's like, oh, okay, well, how are we going to do that? He's like, I'll be back tomorrow. So we leave that day, not knowing what's going to happen. The next day, this guy pulls up with like this $50 rental moving truck, and he just opens the back, and there's RC cars, tools, Raspberry Pis, and he just starts unloading everything. So we had probably like a large table. We filled all that up and the floor around us. And in the next like day, he put together a functioning little robot that could spot the color red. And that was like the biggest achievement for us, because with this, we could actually show a demo. And that's what happened. And then when he first started formulating the pitch, he went into technical details. And when I went to look at, and that was probably the first thing that I learned, was learn to speak to your audience. I went to check who were the judges. And that was, again, what I learned over the few dozen startup weekends that I was at before, was just learning to look at the judges. And I saw these guys were like business people. They were safety engineers. There wasn't really anybody that had a technical understanding. So to them, saying that we're using DC brushless motors is not going to mean anything. That's just going to be technical jargon. So I said, that's great, but what if we try to talk about how much it would cost to make it and how much lives it could potentially save? And why would this be a good feature for them? And when we formulated the pitch, we broke it down, and I always use this process, which is very simple. And I actually learned this from a gentleman. His name is Robert. Dang it, I keep forgetting his name. Basically, he has a 10 pitch slide, which is learn the problem, learn the solution, and then learn the cost, profit, and market. And that's pretty much all you need to be able to make a simple winning pitch. Is just those slides where you learn to address the problem very quickly, make people feel that problem and understand why it's important, show how simple your solution is and why your solution is the best, address if there is anybody else that is trying to solve this problem, and again, explain why you're the best, and then just show how much it would cost to make one, and then how much it would cost to make back the profit and how you're going to do that. And that's really simple. And that was definitely the best skill that I learned at that age. And from there, I started learning technical stuff, and we went to SVOD. We pitched at Ireland. Then we got our passports, everything. We went off to Silicon Valley, and we pitched here. And I actually won the audience award. And basically, there were the audience award is probably I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's challenging, because the other awards, you just won it based on your first pitch and the ability of investment, right? But the audience award, every attendee got 300 in fake SVOD money. Basically, it was just a point system. And whoever could collect the exact amount of these dollars to get the people to basically crowdfund it would be able to get an award and represent that idea is easy to understand. And that was a 3-day event. I don't know what it is with me and like events and like having them 3 days, but that's apparently like my magic number. So 3-day event, after I went on the main stage and pitched, which was the video that you guys saw there, I went back and I pitched almost every single person at that event. And I managed to actually get the People Audience Award in 2016, which is right. I'm not sure if the camera can see it, but
Yeah,
we can see it.
it's right here. And from
Nice
there, we decided to stay in America. We decided to stay in Vegas. Well, not first. We were like, okay, America is the place for us. Silicon Valley, it's the place of disruptors. Heads up, Silicon Valley or any like that whole area, like it's just super expensive.
Super.
And at that time, we just did not have the ability to live there. So we went up and down the entire coast looking for a spot. Places that we wanted to stay at were too expensive. Places that we could stay at just did not look like they were in the best neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we were going to events. We were trying to find out because in Silicon Valley, especially like before the whole COVID, events were everywhere. The question was not that is there an event, it was which event should you go to. Meetup was probably powering this entire area. So we would just go day in, day out to an event, to meetings, just to try to understand people. And we ended up meeting a person who actually brought us here to Vegas. And when we first said like, oh yeah, you guys should move to Vegas, I was like, well, Katie doesn't gamble. I'm too young to drink. What are we going to do in Vegas? And we ended up going to Vegas just to give it a shot. It was pretty much like our hope, where we were like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, we're going to start to figure something else out. And we arrived there. And that was sort of where we started feeling around the area. And we've already tested, by this point, we've tested out the program. We've taught kids from Ireland. We've taught kids, we've sort of had an idea of the program and how to make the process. And this was where I really started embracing my inner nerd and pulling out my technical skills. And we started really focusing on this. And we actually started working with a few schools here in Vegas. And we actually still work with a few of the schools, and we're still right now doing online after school programs with them. And that's like sort of where we really started to like become perfect, was in these short 1 hour sessions. Because what we determined is that if we can teach a kid more in 1 hour than they can learn in a school year or in a school month or in a normal school day, then we have officially made something that is viable. And if we can make the worst students who perform the worst to perform the best, and to make sure they actually understand and are passionate about this, we've succeeded. Our goal was always that. Our goal was to be able to take the worst student to the best student and be able to empower them and get them so passionate to work together and to build something successful. And that's sort of what we've embraced. And that's what we do to this day now. We do it now in a much more scalable way because, again, we've put in so many years, blood, sweat, tears, anything, the amount of hours we've spent sitting and just reconfiguring something and figuring it out for that one student, even though sometimes it would get annoying and we were just about to give up, but we did it and we figured out why and how to make it work. We developed ZeduPlus. So ZeduPlus was our first program. This is aimed for kids for after school programs for schools. This one, what ZeduPlus means is Z generation education. So that's why it's the ZEDUPLUS. And we wanted to teach, we wanted to build this program where we could bring it into any after school group and get kids to be excited about STEM, so get them to be excited about science, it's about education, technology, design. We would bring them through programs where they started off knowing nothing to being able to design a t-shirt or a presentation. We started doing our own versions of these events, these hackathons, because again, like for me, I was lucky enough to have great support of my parents. And then also I was really lucky enough to be always that in Ireland, because it was so small, it was usually the same organizers. And luckily, because they were nice enough to let me go the first time, they sort of trusted me to go again. But I realized that there's not really a possibility for kids to go to these type of events because they're all age blocked, which is understandable. But then also, if we keep saying that kids are the future, how do we expect them to be the future when there's no place for them to actually make things?
That's right.
And
so,
yeah,
I'm trying to get. So is your program software? Is it in-person enrichment? And I'm still not lucid on exactly what.
So it's a bit of everything. So we can go online. We can go fully virtual. Virtual means that, for example, if we do online learning, that means that they could be like in a physical location, connecting together into one platform and working together. or if we have fully virtual, like right now, most of our students are completely virtually learning, meaning that they're at home, they're learning through us through Zoom, they're learning through our LMS, and that's like the main system that we have right now going. Then we have on physical locations, which is what we first started out with. So this can be deployed in an event, it can be deployed in a school, it can be deployed in after school programs. So we work in any type of constraint, because when we designed this, we wanted this to be accessible to anybody. And the long-term goal is to have this program fully packaged in a USB. And we're actually currently working on designing a computer that can work in any type of conditions, whether there's no electricity or if there's no internet, so that this computer can work properly. It's very small, it can be solar powered, or we're looking at a couple of different power options right now, and we're still trying to figure out how to do this. We want to build a curriculum that can be taught by somebody who doesn't have access to internet, who doesn't have access to a stable internet. Like here in the States, we could even saw that problem like when COVID first hit us and schools were forced to go into online learning. There were students who couldn't log on because they didn't have internet, or the internet was just not up to par for what they needed. And this caused an issue, and this is valuable time that students lost to learning. So from the beginning, we always said that we want this program to be available anywhere. So anywhere in the world, no matter what, as long as they can have access to a very short amount of internet, download the curriculum, download a program, whether they're going to need to print that out or they're going to need to have it on a special device, they can have access to that, and they can have access to quality resources, and not just resources that were written by somebody in an office, but that have actually been tested out. Because a lot of resources, unfortunately, to this day, they're made by talented people, but they've never actually been tested, and which hurts a lot for a lot of teachers.
Yeah. So we try to make these programs that you can make it online or offline. You can make it a flexible bubbles, which can be from an hour to more 3-4 hours a day for a week or 4 weeks. The essence of the program is that every module at the end, the student has something in his hand, like a t-shirt if he wants to print it out, or he has a graphic design, a book. So he sees in 4 weeks, most of 4 weeks, the result of what he's doing. Because that's what I noticed that was driving Eric. He could see, actually, this is what I did with what I learned. Right. And then we could see on students, like, you know, that look in the eyes of the student when they hold in first time in their hands or on the screen their first book, and they are like, everybody can read it now? Oh, I'm sending it to my mom. Oh, my auntie just told me that is so cool. Because they realize that it's not a useless sitting there. It's something that actually they can implement. So based on that, and then it was the big question, how to scale it. Right. And this is what we are working now, and we already are testing it. We developed actually a program that is 5 days a week. It's between 2, 3, or 4 hours, depending on the student ability, or if it's a teacher who's teaching it or a parent, where the step-by-step everything is organized. So the student just has to go through. It's everything interactive, so they have to engage. They have to do a lot of work. And then this, what we think, and we now see that kids love. You know, we had kids, Eric just received, because he's teaching the 9 to 12 graders after school. And we just received a letter last week from a father who said, wrote to the principal, please do this program to continue, because my son was not having the ability to communicate with people. He was all the time bullied in school. He was not willing to learn. And now he's with Eric, I think from the start of the school year. And he sent Eric at 3 o'clock in the night last night, what he was working on, because he changed his mind. He wants to learn. He wants to go to college. And then the principal was like, what just happened? No. And this is what happens, you know, it's not a miracle. Right. It's a process. And this is one message for the parents, which are, you know, want, or they are afraid. Don't expect miracles. You know, you take out your kid from the school, there is no miracle. It will not come better. He will not know more, but he will definitely engage in a process that will make him better no matter what.
How many users?
This is sure.
No, I get it. How many users do you have? What's your scale at this point?
So we have after schools kids, we have some private kids. There we have 1-on-1, and then we have some small groups. We have now like 200 users. But we just started to use this program online last year. And actually COVID pushed us to do everything online, because when the schools here in Vegas kind of know our work. So when the COVID hit and everybody was online, the phone was burning, and they, oh, what do we want to do tomorrow? Can you make a class for me? Can you show me how? I actually made the webinars for teachers. And then I learned that the teacher either doesn't have the technical knowledge, the time to learn, it's too much stress. So they don't want another program you know, they were so happy when I showed them Google Classroom, because we actually worked in school on ground for 3 years in the Title I school. And I started with my kids the Google Classroom. So all the teachers came, they said, oh, Miss Katy is in Google Classroom. And they came, oh, how I do it. So they set up the Google Classroom, and they come back the next day and said, Katy, there's nothing in this. But I said, yeah, this is just a platform. You have to put every single day. And they said, oh, go away. And they never used the Google Classroom. And then I realized that they need something which has a guidance at least. Is there something every day for them? And they can change it, of course, if they want. But they have something to teach the kids. And then also I learned, and these kids, I'm forever grateful. You know, Title I school, it was, we came from a different culture. They were from a different culture. And I was standing there. And what I learned, that the teacher has to be prepared. And it was one or twice when I lost them. And I went in next day and I said, I put my hands up. It was my fault. I was not prepared. And you were very, very right to do what you did, kids. So I will be sure that I never show up here again without an exact plan, because they will sniff you and they will take you apart. Yes, and this is the good learning. I like that challenge because it forced me to think all this program out. How can I keep them engaged? If you lost them for 10 seconds, one of them, it's all gone.
We're running out of time. I wanted to hear, well, from Eric, what is your dream version in 10 years? What does Eric's dream in 10 years look like?
Years, because I want to retire.
So our goal, I would say, the best thing I can say right now for the first of all 3 years is the time track that we're sort of working towards. We've put in many years of experimenting work. Smarty has years of us testing and engineering it to be what it is today. Our goal within the next 3 years is to be able to have a program that is being used by kids all over the world, where the company is profitable, because at the end of the day, as you know, the world does revolve around money. So our goal is to have a program that is either fully funded by amazing donors, people who want to be able to get education to be free, or to be a very budget-friendly subscription service. We want to have curriculums that are usable by anybody, no matter where they are in the world, no matter what skill set they have. If it's somebody who has absolutely no experience with technology, who just knows how to turn on a computer, they can be able to take that and teach kids how to work with that. We want to have curriculums that have been tested, that are approved to work in multiple cultures, that are approved to work with pretty much anybody. Our goal is to create solutions so that our goal is to create solutions for anybody. Regarding technology, we want to be able to create a computer that can work in most environments with fully updated curriculums. We want to build a virtual world where kids can connect with other kids and build the future. Because at the end of the day, they are the future. And we want to sort of facilitate that space where they can prepare for that. They can already start to work on ideas so that by the time they are ready to help the world, or even if it's sooner than we thought that they're ready to help the world, they can have that possibility. And that's our main goal.
And that is also support for all parents who are afraid of homeschooling or unschooling. They can use it, and they have a frame, which I always wish to have. This program, they open it for the child every single day, 5 days a week, and they will find a guidance and lessons. Of course, they can make more or they can do less, but at least they have a guidance. What is that, my child? Because this is the biggest fear. Okay, now what we will learn. And then, you know, hundreds of thousands of curriculums. This has everything, this program, from thinking, critical thinking, teaching how to play games, not only play them, has every day a curriculum which is actually standardized. So just the parents to be, you know, just in case the child wants to go back to school, guess what? This program, you can learn with it and brings them back, but that's only a little part. Has movement, has arts, has enrichment, and it's a ready to go program where you, like an unschooled, can feel safe and can just do it. Now we did the K to 3 part, and we want to develop it until 8 and then 12. And then we're hoping that, you know, I always say this system is a monster. It's very old. You can't break it in. But I truly believe that if many people start to use alternative education, and if we give them what to use and pioneer the way for them, one day we'll be more outside, and guess what? The system will crash and join us.
Hooray. We're out of time, but Cass suggests you go ahead and just say a word about your summer camp. Katie, you want to say your summer camp 101?
Last year we made an international summer camp because nobody could travel. It's not big hopes for this summer, but anyway, even if you travel, it's 2 times a week, 45 minutes. And we are inviting kids from all over the world. We have many contacts in Europe. Schools are joining us, language schools. So it's an absolute great opportunity for kids to join 2 times a week and to talk with other kids from all over the world. We will be story-based because we'll have a story from each country, and we'll work on that, and we'll build relationships and learning language and culture and knowing each other, because that's the best way that this world can be, when we are all together.
Terrific. I definitely can't wait to do a deep dive into your work. So I'll be reaching out. And thanks very much for joining us. So
Thank you very
another
much.
episode for When School's Not Working. And Eric is my coolest young dude.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Katie for supporting him in every way possible. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
So much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Katie. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. We'll be.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.